Hey, this is Joe from SoFly, and in this video, we are going to import WordPress users from an Excel file. So to get started, we'll go over here to All Import and select New Import. And then we have three options. We can upload a file from my computer. We can download a file. For example, if I had it on Dropbox, I could put the Dropbox URL here, and then, for example, set up a schedule and then run my import and upload that file every week or whatever I wanted to. Again, this can be hosted anywhere that has a URL that's going to give me my Excel file. Or if my Excel file was on an FTP server, I can put that FTP information here, and then it's going to log into the FTP server and download the file. Or finally, if we wanted to, we could upload a file that was already used in a previous import, right? So we just have all of my previous imports here, and I could select it, and there we go. In this case, we're going to upload a file from my computer. And here it is, users with job info. So let me drag it in over here so we can take a quick look at it. And you can see it's kind of what you would expect, right? We have the first name, the last name, an email column, job title, the department where the user works, the date they were hired, their LinkedIn URL, any allergies they may have, and a performance review, right? So this is just kind of like a general list of all of the people that work at my company. So let's go ahead and select this. So users with job info, we'll open that. And there we go. So we have two options here, right? We have new items and existing items. And then down here we have a pull down so we can select what we're going to import. I'm going to be creating new users. So we have posts by default, and I'll select users from the pull down. So now I'm going to create a new user for every single row in my Excel sheet. Now, there's a difference here between existing items and new items. So when I run this import here with new items, it's obviously just going to create new users, right? If I run this import again, it can actually update those users, right? It can add new users that were added to the Excel file. It can remove users that were removed, and it can update ones where the data has changed for an existing user in that file. But one thing it can't do is it can't touch any users that were created outside of this import, right? So this import is only going to touch users that were created in this new items import. Now, I might already have users on my site that I've created manually or that users have created themselves, user accounts. I also might have run a different import, right, with users, and I want to interact with those users regardless of how they were created. That's what an existing items import is for. So with this option over here, we can import into existing users that were created via some other means than this import. Right? Now, we have a lot of videos and a lot of documentation on this. Check out our YouTube channel, check out our website. We have a lot more information on that. In this case, we're going to go with a simple new items import and create new users for each record in my data file. So that's set up. Now we will continue to step 2. All right, and here WPL import has processed my file, right? I have 8,345 users, and this is what they all look like. Here's all the column headers that have been detected. So the first name is Charla, last name, and down we go, right? That's all of the information for this user. So everything looks good here. If you had some sort of problem, then you can select a different base node over here. You don't really need to worry about that. It's mostly an issue with XML imports. So in this case, for CSVs and spreadsheets in general, like Excel files, it's usually going to work out of the box. And then down here, we have our filtering options. So we don't have to import all of these users, right? Let's say we want to import just a subset of them. For example, everybody in our sales department. So we can select department, rule equals, and the value is going to be sales. Add the rule, and then you can see down here, we have the rule we just created, department equals sales, apply filters to XPath, and now we have 724 people in sales. So the way this works over here is this is actually just this user interface here. It's just generating this XPath statement, because when we upload a file into WPL import, it's actually going to convert that into XML under the hood. So we can do interesting things like filters and stuff like that pretty easily. You don't need to know what any of those words mean to use WPL import. You don't need to know how XPath works. You don't even need to know what it is. But if you do know what XPath is, you can write your own XPath statements here. So you can do some pretty interesting stuff. Now we have documentation on our website and our YouTube channel about interesting things you can do with XPath. But again, you don't need to know how this works to use WPL import. And we can actually add more rules. We can combine them. So let's say we want to find people, for example, with a performance review, that is less than 7, right? So we have 724 people in sales. Add this rule. The department is sales and the performance review is less than 7. Apply filters. And now we have 304. So we have 304 people in sales that are underperforming, right? How many of these people have a allergy? Let's see. Allergy equals peanuts? Is it peanut or peanuts? Let's see. 6. We have 6 people allergic to peanuts with a bad performance review that work in sales. So you can do a lot here with filters. There's a lot of interesting stuff you can do. I'm going to simplify this a little bit, and let's just see who our lowest performing salespeople are, and let's put them into this WordPress site. So we'll apply filters. We'll get rid of that peanut allergy. And there we go. 304 people are low performers in our WordPress site. Okay, so let's continue to step 3. And this is where we're going to actually set up our import. Now, before I get into the user account info and the other user info over here, you might notice we have some of these custom fields over here. And those are going to be detected down here, right? But I haven't added them yet. So if we click see detected fields, we're not going to see any fields over here, right? We haven't created them yet. So if not all of the fields were created, manually create a user, fill out each field you want to import data into, and then create a new import. And WPL import will display these fields as available for import below. So first, let's go in and let's use ACF because ACF is pretty nice and easy to use. And let's create fields for all of these custom fields. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to go to field groups, add new. So we'll add new field group. All right. So the field group title is going to be job info. And now we have to create all of our fields. But first, let's set the location rule. So show this field group if user role is equal to subscriber, right? Because all of the users I'm importing are going to be subscribers. All right. So here is the file. And we have our standard fields over here that are already included in WordPress, like first name, last name, email, but we want to add job title and department. So let's add a field for job title. Field label is going to be job title. Perfect. Add another field. That's going to be department. Then we have to add a field for the hired date, and we'll make this a date field. We should have date somewhere down here. There we go. Date picker. Field label, it's going to be hired date. We have job title, department, yeah, hired date, okay. Add a field, job title, department, hired date. We don't need one for the LinkedIn URL. We can just use the standard URL field that's in WordPress for users. But we do need to add one for allergies. Okay. There we go. And we'll add another field. This is going to be a number for performance review. Okay. So there we are. Let's save our changes. There we go. We have 5 fields. Looks good. And now let's add our user. So we'll add a new user over here. And you can see here's my job info. All right, username is just going to be test, email, test@example.com. We can leave everything else blank. Don't need to send an email. Okay, job title is just going to be job title, department. We're just putting in dummy information here. So WPL import can detect these fields. All right, add a new user. Done. All right, so now what we want to do is go back over to WPL import, go to new import. Let me upload my file again. Go back into our import, create new users. There we go. We can just leave the filters blank. We can just import all of these users here. All right, and now let's go for our custom fields. So let's see detected fields, and there we go. Performance review, allergies, hired date. Okay, so since this is open, let's just jump ahead. We'll get back to this in a second. So I'm going to go over the custom fields here. So all of these custom fields are associated with users on our site, right? And we're obviously not going to be importing all of these. So let's clean this up and let's just stick to the ones that we know we want to import. Okay, so we want to do job title, but we don't need this one here, right? The underscore in front, this is a ACF field, right? For the actual field itself. So we don't need that. We don't need this. We don't need that. This, and we don't need that. So this is just the data we want, right? And let's remove the dummy data from the file for the user we created already. Okay. And okay. All right. And now let's drag everything in. So we simply drag and drop, right? So job title, I just drag in the job title. I just drag in my department, put in my hired date. And not doing this one. Okay, allergies go here, and our performance review goes here. Okay, so that's it. Now, our first name, we just drag in our first name, and then we drag in our last name. The login is a string that contains the user's username for logging in. So what do we want their username to be? Let's make their username their first name and their last name. Drag in their email. And for the password, we're going to leave the password blank. We have the option of importing the password if we wanted to. If we leave the password blank, WordPress is just going to create a password for them. And then when the user gets an email to log in, or an email to tell them they have a new account on the site, or maybe you want to send them an email separately, or maybe you want to use a plugin to customize the welcome email that they get. Regardless, all they need to do is click when they try to log into their new account. Is all they need to do is click the forgot my password link. You can send them the same link. They put in their email address, they get an email, they create a new password, right? So that's a secure way to import users and have a password generated for them. Now, if you want to import the password, so let's say you're migrating users from one site into this one, you would actually use WPL export for that. And what that's going to do is it's going to export the hashed version of their password, and then securely import that hashed version into this site. So you can't see the password. Nobody else can see the password. If somebody gets a hold of that export file, they can't see the password. They can only see a hashed version, which is secure. So that's how that works. So I'm going to, again, leave this blank. If you're interested in importing passwords, check out our YouTube channel. Check out our documentation. We have a lot of more information on that. Okay, so we'll leave that blank. Then in other user info, for the role, we can specify the role. So, let's say, for example, I had a different role for every department here. I could just drag in department, and then, this person would be in the sales role or whatever. If you had another column for the role, you could do that too, however you want to do it, or you can just type it in here. So role, subscriber, all these people are going to be imported as subscribers. The nickname, this defaults to the person's username. In this case, it's the first name and last name with no space, but let's add a space in there so their nickname is a little bit nicer. So first name, space, we'll drag this over. Oops, let me get that again. There we go. First name, space, last name. Display name. So this is the string that's going to be shown on the site on the front end, and this defaults to their username. So let's just do the same thing. So Control A, Control C, and then Control V. Oops, there we go. First name, space, last name for their display name. For their description, we don't really have a field for this, but we can combine multiple fields into one. So this person is a job title in the sales department. Right? So say they're a marketing manager in the sales department. That's what that field's going to end up saying for this user. For the next one, it'll say they're a senior sales associate in the accounting department. Why is there a senior sales associate in the accounting department and not the sales department? I have no idea, but this is a very big corp, so probably makes sense to them. Okay. Moving along, we have registered. This is the date that the user registered. Format is year, month, date. So year, month, date. Here we go. Hired. We'll drag that in. And nice name. This is a string that creates the URL friendly name for the user. And this is defaults to the user's username. So we'll just leave that as the username. As the default there, we'll leave it blank. And the URL containing their website, in this case, LinkedIn. Perfect. Now, you might notice we have two date fields here. We have the registered date and the hired date, right? So let's go ahead and let's just leave these both with the same data, right? Because I probably want to have my hired date show up in this specific field, not necessarily associated with the registered date. Okay, so that is all of our fields over here. Now, up here for this registered date, WPL import is going to process this data and put it in there, right? But from the hired date over here, it's not necessarily. It's just going to put whatever string is in here in there. So let's run the import and let's check it. But we might need to use a custom PHP function to change that date, right? To get it to be imported properly. Now, the way that would work is we would just write a function and it would look like this. So we wrap everything in brackets. And that means that this field, right, everything inside of these brackets is going to be processed as PHP. And then just like in PHP, I can declare a function like that. So my function is called change date. And then inside of these parentheses, right, we're going to pass in the hired date data, this value over here into this function. And whatever this function returns, it's going to show up in this field. Now, the next step is I would have to declare my function. So we can declare it down here, function, change date, do stuff. There we go. So this would be my, I need these, that's weird. Okay, so this is how PHP works in WPL import. We declare the function over here and then we call it up there just like that. Do you need to know how to use PHP to use WPL import? Absolutely not. If you are really bad at PHP, can you do PHP with WPL import? Absolutely. You can just copy and paste functions like this, try them, see if they work. It's a great way to learn PHP. And again, if you don't know PHP, don't worry about it. You don't have to do. If you're a really good developer, you can do a lot of very interesting stuff with this over here. And, you know, we have a lot of documentation on our website and our YouTube channel about that. But for now, we're just going to leave this blank. We're just going to stick to the hired field over here, import it like that, and let's see what happens. Okay, so import template set up. Let's continue to step 4. And then we have our unique identifier. We'll just click auto detect. So what this is saying is everybody with the same first name and last name is the same person, right? WPL import needs to know, for example, if we run this import again later, or even in the same import, right? Each record, what makes that record unique, right? How does it match that record to the actual user on the site? So it knows if it should import it, a new one, or update an existing one. So in this case, you know, with last names like Johnson and stuff like that, maybe first name, last name, it's conceivable that, especially in a big corporation, that two people might have the same name. Usually WPL import gets it correct. In this case, it's chosen first name, last name, which means in this file, there is nobody with the same first name, last name. But to be absolutely correct about it, a better unique identifier would be email, right? No two people have the same email address, at least in this case. So what's going to make these unique is going to be the email. So that's going to be my unique identifier there. You can usually just click auto detect and get away with not even paying attention to it. And indeed, that would have worked in this case. Okay, then down over here, we have some options, right? So when WPL import finds new or changed data, what should it do? In this case, we're importing new items, right? So it's not going to find any new or changed data, right? It's just going to import all of these once. But if I run this import later, what should it do, right? Well, there's 3 cases, right? Either there's a new user that's added into my file when I run it later, or there's an existing one that's changed. Maybe, you know, Georgianne has moved it's changed their title to another like marketing, like senior marketing manager, for example. So do we want to update that or not, right? Do we want to update all of the data or just only update, for example, like a custom field, like their job title, right? We don't want to change their first name or their last name. We just want to change whatever else. So you can choose exactly which data to update and not update for later recurring imports. And then finally, what should we do if a user has been removed from the file when we run it later. Should we delete them? Should we add a custom field that says fired? Something like this. Totally up to you. We're not really going to cover this in too much detail in this video. We're just going to import the users. If you're curious about recurring imports and like scheduled imports and things like that, we have a ton of documentation and a ton of videos on our website for you to check out. So we're just going to leave these with the default settings for now. Then finally, email notifications for imported users. This is very important, and you want to kind of consider what you're going to do here before you actually run your import in production, because it matters, right? If I'm running this import and I have this disabled, all of these people are just going to get the standard welcome to WordPress email, right? Which maybe you don't want. Maybe you want to run, a separate email with through HR or through MailChimp or something like that. Or maybe you want to use a WordPress plugin that lets you customize the welcome email so that they actually get some, meaningful information about how to log into their new account. Totally up to you. You have a lot of options here. In this case, I'm going to block email notifications just in case there is a bigcorp.com and Georgianne works there and that's her email address. So I'm going to keep this blocked, and then no emails are going to get sent through. Now, there are some cases where this might not work, and it might not work in cases where you have a WordPress plugin that's kind of doing weird stuff with email. So generally speaking, if you have a site that has email plugins on it, I would highly advise you doing a test import with just like an email address you can check, just to make sure that this is actually going to work if it is important to you that these emails are actually blocked. We do the best that we can, but WordPress is open source and there's a lot of plugins that do stuff in a lot of weird ways and kind of get around some of the blocks that we have in place. Okay, so email notifications set up, and finally scheduling options. Now our scheduling options, because I'm uploading this file from my computer, I can't set up a schedule, right? There's no point. What's the point of running this import every Monday if the file is just going to be the same file that I have already uploaded? However, if I had downloaded this file from a URL, for example, if I had this file even on my computer and I just put in the Dropbox URL, I could have this import run every Monday, pull the file down from Dropbox, and then update my site with the latest version of that file. For example, if I'd made changes to it throughout the week. We have a lot of videos on scheduling, a lot of documentation. It's a very powerful feature, and you can do a lot of stuff with it. I highly recommend you check it out. Okay, and then we have some advanced settings over here. These ones over here for import speed optimization. In this case, we don't really need to worry about it. User imports are generally very fast, so you don't need to worry about this. This comes mostly into play when you're importing, for example, something like WordPress or WooCommerce products that have a lot of images. Then every import, it has to download, every time it imports a product, it has to download a ton of images, and those take a long time. And if, we're doing in each iteration, we're processing 20 records, it has to import 20 WooCommerce products and all of those images, which could be, hundreds of images, and it has to run that whole process less than the time of your PHP timeout for your server. What does that mean? You don't really need to worry about it. If it happens, you're just going to get a warning when you're running your import that the import process has failed. And then you can come in here, you read some documentation on that. We have a link to it in the error message, and it'll just tell you what to do. And this is the screen where you'll take care of that. File splitting, you don't really need to worry about this. And then you're getting some weird error during step 1 when you're uploading your file. Increasing speed by disabling the do action calls in WP insert post during import. The way this works is when we run an import, we're importing a post. We basically tell WordPress, we're importing a post. We're inserting a post. We're creating a new post. And then it gives the opportunity for all the other plugins you have on your site to do stuff, right? So when you insert a new post, maybe it runs some SEO check or does some random stuff. And maybe that takes a bit of time, and that can cause a server timeout if there's a lot of stuff happening every time a post is inserted, right? Or maybe you just don't want those things to happen when you're inserting a post, So you can play with this setting if you need to, but generally speaking, you don't really need to worry about it unless you're having some sort of issue. And then here's just some helpful features. So we can import only specified records. So if we wanted to run a test, like I'm talking about this block email notifications test. Well, let's say, this is my email over here. I can just say, import record 1. Or if I just want to import the first 10 records and record 15, There's a little syntax here you can use. So you can import, just only the specified records in your file. Kind of like a mini filtering option over here. And then this is another kind of debugging feature. So as I said earlier, WPL import converts any file that you give it into XML. And we have two different ways that WPL import processes that XML file under the hood, the one that it's created for you. We have Stream Reader and XML Reader. Some servers have a problem with one of these or the other. So if you're having some sort of issue, you can select this and try it again, right? So if you have to troubleshoot some bizarre issue, contact our support team. We're here to help. And this is something we might have you try. Then the friendly name, import users with job info. This is what's going to show up as the label for this import on the Manage Import screen. So we'll just give it a helpful name over here. All right, so that is my import settings page. Let's continue. Here's a summary of my import. Looks good. Let's confirm and run the import. And this will go pretty quick. It'll take a few minutes. We'll let it run and we'll come back when it's finished. All right, so our import has complete. Let's check out our users. Cool. So here's everybody that we imported. Let's check out Aaron. Aaron's a recruiter in the Human Resources Department. We have their website over here. All their name information came in okay. No allergies. Date looks good. Human Resources Department, job title recruiter, performance review 8. Everything looks good. So that is all it takes to import users with WPL import from an Excel file. Thanks for watching. Check out our YouTube channel. Check out our documentation. We have a lot more information on importing users and everything else like WooCommerce customers, WooCommerce products. You can actually import anything with WPL import from any file, and you can export anything to any file with WP All Export. So we will see you soon, and thanks for watching.